I am giving you exactly 30 minutes to get your trash off my property, or I am calling the police to have you arrested for trespassing. That is what my stepmother, Linda, screamed at me while standing on the porch of the house my father built with his own 2 hands. It was pouring rain. My clothes were soaked, stuffed into black garbage bags that she had thrown out of the second-story window like confetti. Standing behind her was her useless son, Kyle, filming the whole thing on his phone, laughing. Bye-bye, loser. Enjoy the streets. He jeered. Linda waved a piece of paper in the air. A copy of my father's will. Your daddy left the house to me, she cackled, her eyes wide with greed. He knew you were a disappointment. He left me the building, the furniture, the cars, everything. You get nothing. Now get off my property. I wiped the rain from my eyes. I didn't scream back. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I just reached into my jacket pocket and touched the cold, folded edge of a document my father gave me 3 years ago. A document Linda didn't know existed. I looked up at her and said calmly, "You're right, Linda. Dad did leave you the house. Congratulations. But there is one tiny detail you forgot to check." "What's that?" she sneered. "You own the house," I said, a cold smile forming on my face. "But I own the land underneath it, and I'm charging you $10,000 a month in rent. Starting yesterday. To understand how we got here, you have to understand who Linda is. My father was a successful contractor. He was kind, hardworking, and unfortunately, very lonely after my mom passed away. Enter Linda. She was 20 years younger than him, flashy and fake. She met him at a country club and immediately sank her claws in. Within 6 months, they were married. I was 22 at the time, and I saw right through her. She didn't love Dad. She loved his bank account. She brought her son, Kyle, into our lives, a 19-year-old dropout who treated our home like a hotel and treated my dad like an ATM. For 5 years, I watched them drain him. They demanded new cars, expensive vacations, and renovations. Dad was too in love, or maybe too tired, to say no. But he wasn't blind. About 3 years ago, Dad's health started failing. It was heart complications. One afternoon, he called me into his study. He looked frail, but his mind was sharp. "Son," he said, closing the door, "I know you don't like Linda, and I know she spends too much." "That's an understatement, Dad." I replied. He sighed. "I have to leave her the house in the will. If I don't, she'll contest it in court, and she'll drag your name through the mud for years. I want her to have a roof over her head, but I want to make sure she can never hurt you." He opened his safe and pulled out a deed. This is the deed to the land. The 5 acres this house sits on. I partitioned property last week. The house is legally property A. The land is property B. I am transferring property B to you. Today. Keep it a secret. He signed the transfer. "This is your insurance policy," he whispered. "If she treats you right, you let her live there. If she turns on you, you pull the trigger. I promised him I would. Last week, Dad passed away, and Linda didn't even wait for the funeral flowers to wilt before she turned on me. The funeral was a blur. Linda played the grieving widow perfectly in public, sobbing loudly for the cameras. But the second we got into the limo, the tears stopped instantly. "When is the lawyer reading the will?" she snapped. "I need to access the accounts. Kyle needs a new truck." 2 days later, we sat in the family attorney's office. Mr. Henderson, the lawyer, read the document. "To my wife, Linda, I leave the primary residence structure at 12 Oak Lane, along with all household contents and vehicles." Linda literally clapped her hands. "Yes. Did you hear that?" She turned to me. "My house. Mine." Mr. Henderson continued, looking at me with a strange expression. "To my son, Opie, I leave the contents of my personal savings account, and the remainder of my estate assets not listed above." Linda laughed. "Personal savings? That account is empty. I drained it last week for the funeral costs." He got nothing. She stood up, grabbed the keys to the house on the table, and pointed a manicured finger at my face. "I want you out. Today. Pack your bags. I'm turning your room into a game room for Kyle. Linda, you can't be serious, I said. This is my childhood home. Not anymore, she screamed. Get out, or I'm calling the sheriff. That leads us back to the driveway, the rain, the garbage bags, and her fatal mistake. After she slammed the door in my face, I drove straight to Mr. Henderson's office. I was soaked, shivering, but my blood was boiling. Did she kick you out? Mr. Henderson asked, handing me a towel. Yes, I said. It's time. Execute the land deed. Mr. Henderson smiled. It was a shark smile. I've been waiting for this. Your father set this up perfectly. In our state, if you own the structure but not the land, you are technically a tenant of the landowner, since there is no lease agreement. She is a tenant at will. We drafted a formal legal letter. It wasn't an eviction notice yet. It was a new lease agreement. The terms were simple. Monthly rent for land usage, $10,000. Retroactive back pay for land usage, $0. Due date, first of the month. Failure to pay results in immediate removal of the tenant's property, the house, from the landlord's property, the land. The next morning, I showed up at the house. Not alone. I brought a sheriff's deputy and a professional surveyor. Linda stormed out in her bathrobe. I told you to leave. Officer, arrest him. He's trespassing. The deputy looked at her calmly. Actually, ma'am, according to the county records, you are trespassing. This man owns the property. You just own the building sitting on top of it. Linda's face went white. What? That's impossible. The will said, the will gave you the house. I interrupted, handing her the legal packet. But Dad gave me the dirt. Here is your new lease agreement. Rent is $10,000 a month. First payment is due in 48 hours. If you can't pay, you have to move your house off my land. Move the house? She shrieked. You can't move a brick house. That sounds like a you problem, Linda. I said coldly, you have 48 hours. For the next 2 days, my phone blew up. Linda called me 50 times. Kyle sent me threatening texts. Even Linda's friends called to call me a monster. I ignored them all. On the third day, I returned with a demolition crew I had hired just for show. We parked a massive bulldozer right at the edge of the driveway. Linda ran out, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Please stop. We can't pay $10,000. We don't have that kind of money. Then move the house, I said, leaning against the bulldozer. We can't, she sobbed. It costs $50,000 to move a house. Just let us stay. We're family. Family? I laughed. You threw my clothes in the mud. You kicked me out in the rain. We aren't family. This is a business transaction. I pulled out a second contract. Option B, I said, I will buy the house from you. Right now. Her eyes lit up with hope. You'll buy it? For market value? It's worth $500,000. No, I corrected her. The house is worth nothing if it has nowhere to sit. I'll buy it for $50,000. That's enough for you and Kyle to get an apartment somewhere far away. That's robbery, she screamed. That's the offer. I said, checking my watch. You have 5 minutes before I charge you for another month's rent. She looked at the house. She looked at the bulldozer. She looked at Kyle, who was hiding inside like a coward. Defeated, she grabbed the pen. Her hands were shaking as she signed the house over to me. Linda and Kyle moved out that afternoon. They took everything they could carry, but they lost the war. I moved back into my childhood home the next day. I renovated my room. I hired a gardener. I eventually sold the entire property, land and house together, for over $600,000. I used the money to start my own construction business, just like Dad. As for Linda, the last I heard, she blew through the $50,000 in 6 months and is now working as a cashier at a grocery store. Kyle is back living in her basement. Dad knew exactly what he was doing. He gave her enough rope to hang herself, and she did. She tried to steal the castle, but she forgot who owned the kingdom.